It is finally Wednesday, which means I have that huge news that all of you have been eagerly waiting to hear about here on the Media Row podcast with me, Justin Miller. Happy to have you along. It is going to be a really busy show, kind of a different show because now we're to that time of the year where basketball season's over. Sure, will we have more news about transfer portals and players coming to Drake, of Coach Henderson, what's happening there, Coach Woodley with the football team. Maybe we will get into softball with that season in full gear right now. Drake Relays is coming up. So we will still have quite a bit of Drake coverage here on Media Row, but we will also kind of have a revolving door of guests along with just kind of talking about everything in the sporting world. This is kind of now turning into, if some of you have been following me since my time at iHeart with KXNO, this is going to start being that time of the year that Trav, Ross, Sean, Chris Williams, everyone that I looked up to over there and mentored me over there, it was always one of their favorite times of the year because you can really talk about anything, and we will talk about anything and everything in today's show. We have NCAA championship recap to get into. A few thoughts on what we saw Monday night. We will get into, yes, NBA news. I'm a casual NBA fan, but even I was shocked by the news that we saw yesterday get released kind of late to early afternoon. And then we will end with some Masters talk, as tomorrow we have the first round of the greatest golf tournament in the history of golf tournaments. Teeing off tomorrow morning. We'll break down that and maybe break it down from a unique standpoint as well. You know me, I'm a big numbers guy. We may be shifting away from numbers and going about this Masters tournament in a different way. So stay tuned for that because we have a lot to get to. But yes, it is time to sit back and announce the big news. On Monday and late last week, I was teasing this all week long. Now, I could pull a Ross here and just tease it all until the final end of the show because I'm sure we'll have Ross on the show and he'll explain that inside joke. But actually, I'm just going to kick it off because I'm so excited to announce that Media Row is growing in their sponsorships. And that means while we still have Kelly's Little Nipper and are so happy to have Kelly's Little Nipper, we have just gained Stevens Automotive and Sales over at 5320 Northwest Beaver Drive in Johnston, Iowa. When you hear people talk about their sponsorships, they always talk about community and family and relationships. And 99% of the time, those are all true. And this one is so true. My whole family has been going to Stevens for 20 plus years before I was born. My brother and I have never had our car worked on or even bought a car from anywhere else, even looked anywhere else outside of Stevens Automotive. And they are about as close to that family feel as you could get from a car dealership, a car repair shop. I mean, they are one of the nicest people, the Stevens. Debbie, the mom of the owner, and then you have Jeff, the owner, are just incredible people. And if you guys were following along with me, around mid-January, I was having a hell of a time with my car. It wasn't starting, battery issues. It was in and out of the shop. Again, it just wouldn't start. And with all that being said, Jeff was always there. He is a guy that is a no BS type guy. I ask him, how much is this going to cost me? And he really goes out of his way to try to find the best deals. And he does that with everyone. I mean, in high school, when I'd go there to get an oil change, I'd have to sit in the lobby because none of my parents would be able to, pick me up, or I didn't have any buddies that were able to pick me up. So I'd have to sit in the lobby for like 5 hours while I waited for my car to get in. And they were just great with every customer. I didn't see anyone have any issues. They were always willing to help if something happened in your personal life, to try to help you as much as possible. And that's just the people you're going to meet and work with if you go to Stevens Automotive. So happy to have Jeff and everyone from Stevens Automotive and sales on board, and can't wait to just further grow that relationship. So everyone, if you have any car issues, we're getting to that time of the year for, road trips and family vacations. Go get your oil change. Go get it all checked out at Stevens Automotive and Sales at 5320 Northwest Beaver Drive in Johnston, Iowa. And when you do, please tell them that Media Row sent you. So that's the big news. I hope it was worth it. It was worth it for me. This has been incredible in a short amount of time to have this type of interaction and interest, and we're only going up. Coach Henderson coming out of me now. The best is yet to come with Media Row. So, and again, I do owe a huge thank you to everyone that has helped me get to this point, and also all the listeners. I can't sell this if it's without you guys. So please like, subscribe, comment, follow us on any social media. Please, we love the interaction, and it's been awesome to see this just family of Media Row continue to grow. So really appreciate that, and hope the big news was worth the wait. But let's get into our busy show, because we have a lot to dive into. And let's start with what we saw on Monday night in the NCAA championship as the 2024-25 college basketball season comes to a close, with Florida coming back from 12 down to beat Houston 65-63. Florida now joins, I believe, Villanova and UConn as the latest two teams to win 3 NCAA titles. Of course, you had the back-to-back years with Billy Donovan, and now the youngest head coach tying, Jimmy V, with Florida winning, and an amazing game. We'll get into how it was kind of ugly and sloppy there in the second half, but Houston goes from being the team that makes the improbable comeback to beat Duke to get to the national championship game, to them becoming the team that choked away a double-digit lead early in the second half. They had a 92.4% chance to hoist up the national championship trophy, on that little ESPN graphic, with 16:24 left. And not saying I was comfortable when Florida was down 12 and you were seeing how Houston was controlling that second half early on, Florida getting into foul trouble early on. I'm not going to sit here and say, as someone that picked Florida to win on Monday's show, that I was comfortable, but I was sitting there going, okay, it's bad. And Clayton Jr. is taking horrific shots, can't make a shot, had no points in the first half. But this team is battle-tested. And that's what I said on Monday. I love the athleticism of Florida. I love their size. But the thing I loved most about this team throughout their NCAA tournament run was how they were battle-tested. They proved themselves that they could beat teams even when it was at its bleakest. And so they were down 12. Houston again had like a 93% chance to win with 16 whatever left in the game, 16-24. And Florida just does what the Gators have done all March. They were down 9 against Auburn in the Final Four. They were down 9 with under 4 minutes to go against Texas Tech in the Elite Eight. They were down 6 with under 10 minutes to go against the back-to-back reigning national champions UConn in the Sweet 16, or in the round of 64. I apologize. So, yes, I wasn't comfortable. I wasn't sitting there going, oh, they'll be fine, because Kelvin Sampson is a Hall of Fame coach. Houston was controlling it. Houston was forcing really bad Florida shots, was rebounding the ball at an incredible rate. But I did have a little bit of me going, okay, we've seen Florida down. They can come back from this. This wouldn't be rare. Plenty of time left. And that's what Florida did. And it started with who would go on to be the MVP of the game and someone who just dominated throughout the NCAA tournament was Clayton Jr. And like we said earlier, he was taking really bad shots early on. Some were unforced, some were forced by Houston, but no points in the first half. Ends the game with 11 points. In the Final Four and national championship games combined, he shot a perfect 11 of 11 from the free throw line. That is crucial because we saw, Duke miss free throws and how it costed them a game. We saw Texas Tech against Florida. They missed some costly free throws. So important, even though maybe the shots, the three-pointers weren't falling like we saw in the Final Four game for him in the national championship. We saw on his composure and his ability to drive to the hoop. He was getting and ones. The dude just never let his box score get in the way of what the team was trying to do. And that's something we've talked about with both the Drake men and women. We've talked about every team of one of the main characteristics you look for in can a team win, and is this player truly a star player, is someone who doesn't let their personal game affect the team's game. And that's what Clayton Jr. did, and he's had a hell of a ride to this point. Wild. Division I football offers. He was offered from multiple teams, but you look on the list and these four, are highlighted right away with Ohio State, Tennessee, Alabama, and Florida. And he's from Florida, which is really cool that he was able to bring the Gators back a national trophy, championship trophy since 2007. But he goes and chooses basketball, plays at Iona. He was on that team that was in Albany for any Drake fans that traveled to Albany in 2023 when they lost to UConn in a great game. It was fun to watch. But he transfers to Florida and just explodes on the scene and was one of the more athletic players and was truly the leader. And I think it just shows why a guy who could score 0 points and put up 11 is the MVP of the NCAA tournament. And it's because he was just the absolute best player on the court at any given time. And like we said, we would get into kind of that second half. It wasn't pretty. Very ugly. The refs tried to get their names into the storyline of just inconsistent calls. Florida, I think at one point had 7 fouls in the first, 2 to 3 minutes? I feel like it was 17 and a half minutes to go in the second half, and Florida had 6 fouls. But just a lot of inconsistencies on both sides. Walter Clayton Jr. had a huge and one layup midway through that second half. And to be honest, as someone who was, picking Florida, that was not, that didn't feel like a foul when both teams have been so physical all game long. And then you'd see little shoves in the back, and those would be fouls. But then you'd see over the backs, you would see guys get thrown to the floor, and they would swallow their whistle. And I'm okay with letting these two teams kind of play it out, not blowing the whistle close or tight, because their style of play is very much so that we're going to put our arm in your back and expect you to do the same. And the toughest team is just going to come out on top. So I respect that, but you got to be consistent. You can't have ticky-tacky foul here, guy gets shoves to the floor there, nothing there. So refs were kind of inconsistent, and just both teams offensively in that second half, not pretty. But with all that being said, I loved it. I loved every bit of it. And maybe that's a bad take. I saw a lot of people on Twitter being like, man, the Final Four was awesome. Championship kind of was boring. And I was like, I loved it because I expected these two teams to play dirty. Not dirty in like they were, clotheslining each other, getting technicals, but just not a pretty style. They were going to be in the trenches going at it. It wasn't going to be a crazy high-scoring game by either team. And that's why I loved it, is because both teams played to their true identity, and it came down to what would have been a final shot, but great defensive pressure in a weird offensive lineup or setup that was really put off kilter because of that Florida great defense in the final seconds. But you have a player go up for a shot and realizes he can't get it off, so he drops it, realizes he can't pick it up because it's going to be a travel, going to be a turnover with like 3 seconds left. So he just kind of sits back, and no Houston player dives on the floor. Condon does, and Florida wins it. And I think that's the best way to put it. Best way for that game to end is it came down to a dirty get on the floor play for Florida to win that game, because that's what they've done all season long. They did it against Auburn. They did it against Alabama, UConn, Tennessee. That's what they did all year long, was do the dirty work. And that's why Florida is hoisting the championship. So Florida wins 65-63, and the 24-25 NCAA basketball season comes to a close. And few quick thoughts on just the season as a whole, because I put out a tweet late Monday night just saying what an awesome season this was all around. If you're a Cyclone fan, man, early January you had a Final Four team, and just bad injuries, bad luck came around. If you're a Drake Bulldog fan, historic season with a brand new head coach, brand new roster, and you win your first NCAA tournament game since 71. You win your first Missouri Valley Conference Tournament championship and regular season title since 2008. And if you're a Hawkeye fan, you're feeling comfortable of just about moving on from Fran McCaffrey. You're bringing in Ben McCollum and a bunch of great players. You always feel great about Ben Jacobson. And you feel like every offseason he's going to make some moves. So I think every team in the state has a lot to look forward to next year. And it was just a pleasure to be able to cover Drake men's and women's basketball all year long. Huge thank you to everyone at the Drake Athletics department for allowing me to come to every game, interview all the coaches and players, setting up coaches interviews and player interviews on this show. Allison Pullman, I'm getting better. Allison doesn't like being called coach, and that's just something I've always done just out of respect. And so there was a time where, we're leaving a press conference. I was like, thanks, coach. And she goes, yeah, you can call me Allison. And I think the very next game I still called her coach. So I'm trying to drill that in my head. But thank you to Allison Pullman, came on this show. And a huge thank you to Katie Dinnebeer. We had Bennett Sturts, was someone who was listening to the show, and his family was so kind about everything. The Howard's family was great too. And so just a lot of people in the Drake teams and departments that really made this season really special. And of course, allowing me to go to Wichita, a huge, huge thank you to Brian Harden. So just wanted to, just kind of reflect back on the 2024-25 NCAA season and just really excited for what we're going to grow this podcast into next season, as we cover a brand new head coach and brand new roster. So big thanks to everyone that followed along with us throughout the college basketball season. I do want to stick on the basketball topic, but college basketball is over. We're going to move to the NBA. And I've mentioned this before on the show. I'm not a big NBA guy. I like the Spurs. There's players I like. I mean, how could you not fall in love watching Edwards at Minnesota? But I'm a casual fan. I like watching the playoffs. I'll watch a few regular season games here and there. Sure, would it be different if the Spurs were still the Tim Duncan Big Three? Probably. But it's just, I'm more of a casual fan. With that being said, Tuesday afternoon, I was blown away. And I think you learn that, okay, it's not just me being a casual fan that I'm blown away. People that are diehard NBA fans are blown away by this news too. And the news came out that Denver Nuggets head coach Michael Malone and Denver's general manager Calvin Booth both fired. And you're sitting there going, one, the playoffs are about to start. There's 3 games left in the regular season. What's going on? And then you go and I started going through Malone's records, and the dude's a hell of a coach. Clearly won the 2023 NBA Finals championship with Denver, has 471 wins in 10 seasons with Denver, franchise record, owns a franchise record 44 playoff wins with Denver, and yet is now canned, and it's tied for the latest NBA coaching change in league history. And so I'm reading this, and I'm watching the analysts, and I'm watching ESPN, reading articles, and everyone's going, why? Why at this time? Why 5 days before, or whatever, 5 games before the playoffs start? And I think just with the timing of everything, I think a lot of people, you can't help but speculate, is there some sort of major story and major conflict between players and coach, players and management, higher up management and coach, that we're just missing out on? We have to be, because of what this guy has done throughout the season. Because you try to not speculate, but I think everyone's head was racing when they're reading that article and seeing the news of why fire your head coach. And, I heard one that analysis say, well, Denver's lost, 3. They've gone 3-7 in their last 10, have lost 4 straight with 3 games left. And I'm sitting there going, yeah, with 3 games left, and they still are in the 4th seed for the Western Conference division, or in the Western Conference playoffs. And I mean, isn't it kind of like baseball in those long seasons when you know that you're going to be in the playoffs and you didn't clinch like a 1 or 2 seed? Sure, can you try to battle for home court advantage and you want to? Absolutely. But I guess I don't see those stats and go, oh man, they're going to be bad. No, I kind of read it as like, oh, end of the year, they're kind of just trying to stay healthy and get as much rest for their big guys for the playoffs. And so it just doesn't make any sense to me as a casual, common NBA fan. But again, it doesn't make sense to any of the reporters, analysts, and diehard NBA fans as well as to why Coach Malone would be canned 3 games left in the regular season. So really still scratching my head on that. I think it's going to make for an interesting storyline for the NBA playoffs as to see how the players react, how the fans react, with the Denver Nuggets going to be in the mix. I mean, they won a championship 2 years ago. When you have one of the best players in the country, in the world, in Jokic, how could you not expect this team to still have a legit opportunity to go to the finals? But without a head coach, going to be real interesting. So before we jump into our final topic, I do need to give a shout out to our sponsor in Kelly's Little Nipper. Kelly's Little Nipper, of course, a wonderful place for great beer, for great food, and for great community. Wednesday night, so tonight at 7 o'clock, try to get down to Kelly's for trivia night if that's your thing. I like trivia. Megan and I, when we were both in college at DMAC, our freshman year, her apartment in Ankeny was right across from this bar and grill. And we were like, oh, hell yeah, let's go do trivia night. And it was a blast. And now that I know that Kelly's Little Nipper does trivia night, we will probably, more than likely, be showing up at least a handful of times throughout the year. So hope to see you there. Hope to see you there anytime. Going to be there quite a bit. Going to be there probably this Friday for lunch with some friends. So really excited about that. But go check out Kelly's Little Nipper. And when you do, make sure to tell them that Media Row sent you. Moving on to our final topic of today's show, and it's the Masters. Now, I'm a diehard golf guy. It's funny how I'm like, oh, love college basketball, love college football. And then I'm like, NBA, I'm kind of a casual fan. Golf has slowly become where I'll watch any tournament. And I used to, when I was a kid, I made fun of my dad. I'm like, who cares? If it's not a major, who cares? I care now. And the Masters, one of the best times of the week. Today you have, of course, the par 3 challenge, which is always one of the coolest events in Augusta. But they have the tee times all set out for the 2025 first round, the Masters tournament. And starting off, you have 2-time champ and reigning champ Scottie Scheffler teeing off with Justin Thomas in that grouping at 10:15 Eastern. The most bet on golfer, not shocking, as someone who's won twice so far in 2025 at Pebble Beach and in the Players, Rory McIlroy at 1:12 p.m. Eastern. He's the most bet on, clearly. And then Drake alum and 2007 champ Zach Johnson at 8:15 a.m. Eastern. I'll, of course, be watching all of it. I love the Masters. And while I can sit here and go through numbers of, man, this is what Victor Hovland has done of late, this is what Jordan Spieth has kind of struggled with, we're going to scrap that. We're going to judge this and say that the winner is already Scottie Scheffler, because this dude put out an amazing Champions Dinner. So Champions Dinner is a tradition that the Masters started from, I believe it was Ben Hogan, and I believe he started it in 1951, was like the first Champions Dinner. And then it was 1959 where, because they used to do it the Friday of the second round, and they switched it to the Wednesday before the tournament. But now it's become a huge deal. You see on Twitter all the time of what the menu is listed. And I saw the menu, and Scottie Scheffler may not only be the greatest golfer in today's game, but may have made history with the best Champions Dinner we've seen ever. So here's his lineup. The appetizers, cheeseburger sliders, firecracker shrimp, and meatball ravioli bites. Yes, yes, and yes. Those are great starts. You just went birdie on the first hole, Scotty. And then the first meal, he's going Texas-style chili. Now, this one, I like it. I'm not a big chili guy in the summer, but we are still in that weird spring where it could be rainy, it can be kind of cold, or it could be hot. But you know what? Chili is still chili. I'll devour it. Cheddar cheese, jalapeno, and corn chips. Hell yeah. Sign me up. Then the main course. You have the choice. You can pick black and red fish. I have no idea what that is, so we're scrapping that. But wood fire cowboy ribeye? Yes. Love me a good steak. Megan and I, our apartment, we can't really cook steak. We can't have a grill. So I've been craving steak forever. But then the side there, you get mac and cheese, creamy corn, sweet potatoes. Oh, this dude it's going birdie. This dude hasn't had a par or a bogey yet. He's all under for the day so far. And then dessert just knocks it out of the park. Give me just a simple chocolate chip cookie and vanilla bean ice cream. All he's missing is some magic shell from Hy-Vee. And we're golden. And so take with that information what you want. But Scotty Scheffler, that dude's my pick to win because that dinner lineup is legit. And it's a lot better than, well, I shouldn't say a lot better. I think the second best was I was researching what other players have done. And Jordan Spieth had a good like barbecue kind of setup for his dinner in 2016. But he ruined it with like a plain salad, a side salad for your appetizer. Come on, give me the cheeseburger sliders like Scotty. So I know, kind of dumb, but I enjoyed it. I thought it would be fun to discuss with you guys. And again, this is the time of the year when I was at the radio station. We always had fun with cool topics and dumb topics like that too. So great to have you along on this Wednesday. Really appreciate all the support with the big news that we hope to have even more big news as the months go on, as the weeks and days go on. But a huge thank you to Kelly's Little Nipper, Stevens Automotive and Sales, as well as all of you listeners and supporters of Media Row. We will be back Friday as we kind of kick off our interview with sports media, some of my favorite people in the media world, with Tommy Birch from the Des Moines Register. He's going to be on with us Friday to just talk baseball, his career, and much more here at Media Row. We will see you Friday for more sports and more chaos here at the Media Row podcast with me, Justin Miller. Have a great day, and I will see you Friday.